Hi, Phil.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good, good. Lovely to see you again.
Thank
And
you.
today we wanted to have a chat about saving for kids. So I'm just wondering, when do we need to start thinking? Because they quite a few big expenses they have to incur. I guess it's the school fees if they're going for private, and more importantly is the college fees, university fees, and then they need a deposit for the house. So what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think you've summed that up quite well. I mean, whenever we talk about savings at all, then time is your friend here. The
Hmm.
longer you save for, the better chance of compounding interest. Compounding growth on growth on growth. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's an easier ride if you can start as early as possible. But you need to have that clear goal at the end. So
right.
you need to, perhaps you almost start at the end and then you sort of plan forward. So
Yeah.
understanding exactly what you're saving for really
Hmm.
does help you to ensure that you know how much to save and for how long you're going to be saving for. So, if
Yeah.
that is saving for a deposit for a house, that's probably quite a long way away. But if
Yeah.
it's school fees, not so long, or if it's university fees a bit longer,
Hmm.
I don't know, first car,
Yeah.
driving lessons, all these sort of things that can be in the mix, or just
Hmm.
you want to be able to pass a nice bit of money to your child to give them a head
Hmm.
start to do
Hmm.
whatever they wish to do with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so any of these things, but you need to understand what you're saving for before you
Yeah.
really start.
The earlier you start, the better, because then you can put even a small amount of money every month or every year, and it'll go a long way because the amount of compounding you would get on
Yeah,
top of the
yeah,
savings will be quite a
yes,
lot, isn't it?
definitely. It builds on build, so it's has more long term. So
Yeah. So what do you think are the most tax efficient ways of doing these savings?
well, I mean, the first one that we usually think of when we're saving for children. So let's assume that we've not got the money at the moment, and maybe you've
Yeah.
got a new child, toddler, or a new baby, and you're thinking, okay, I want to save for them.
Hmm.
The first thing you'd think of is an ISA.
Yeah.
Now, fundamentally, you then have to consider: do you want an ISA where, when they get to age 18, it becomes their money? Or do you
Hmm.
want an ISA where you keep control of that money and
Hmm.
you can use it for the benefit of that child? So what I'm getting at there is that we've all probably heard of an ISA, but we've probably also heard of a junior ISA.
Hmm.
So yeah, the difference there is a junior ISA is for a child. The limits are slightly less. You can put 9,000 a year into a junior ISA, 20,000 a year into an ordinary adult ISA, as it were. Um,
Yeah.
But the key difference is when you hit age 18 with the
Mm.
junior ISA, that money becomes the child's.
Right.
They've become an adult, so you've saved that money for them during their childhood years. But at 18, they become an adult. That money is theirs, and you cannot stop them from going out and spending it all on whatever they
They
wish.
just go shopping, right? They can do whatever they want at that time. Yeah.
Yes, so you need to be, I guess, careful. I mean, I'm
Mm.
sure if you've brought up your child in a way and you've told them to understand that you've saved this money for them, that they might just convert it into an adult ISA and keep it there for the good of, maybe a deposit for a house, for example. But
Yeah.
if you're a little bit unsure and you prefer to keep a bit of control, then you've got to think to yourself, okay, well, I'll keep the money in my own name and I'll save it
Mm.
up in an ordinary ISA, and then I'll use
My
it for
own
the benefit
ISA.
of the children. Yeah,
So we
just
keep it in my own ISA,
yeah,
and
yeah, and,
um,
and then use it for the benefit of the child as and when
mhm.
you wish. Yeah, and that then can be school fees or uni or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And of course, it's flexible, so you can take a bit out to pay for
Mm.
things and keep
Mm.
on investing as well. So it's flexible either way. So that's sort of quite a fundamental piece of
Mm.
thought process, I suppose. Do you want to have complete control over the money, or do you
Yeah.
just want to give the money to your child when they become of age? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Or just keep it aside in your own ISA. The benefit of ISA is obviously the interest you get is tax free, and any growth the funds get, they are all tax free.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
the
that's
whole money,
excellent.
yeah.
Of course, I mean, you might already be saving into an ISA and be
Mhm.
using that money for something else. So
Mm.
you have got to consider, all right, there's 20,000 limit. I might be saving up, wanting to save a lot of money. So an ISA is basically a tax-free unit trust. So a unit trust, in exactly the same way as an ISA, you can set it up, and again, you can either keep it as your money,
Mm.
or you can do what's called designating it for the
Mm.
benefit of the child. So again, you can either keep it for you, or when it turns 18, the child, the money basically goes to them. It's a unit trust. So it's a trust. It's known as a bear trust. And a bear trust means as soon as it gets to 18, that money is theirs. So
Mm.
you can do either again if you've used up your ISA allowance. Do ISAs first. If you've used up the ISA allowance, then consider unit trusts over and above that.
So unit trust is also an ISA.
Well, an ISA is basically a unit trust with a tax-free wrap around it. So,
Yeah.
so a
So
unit trust is,
we've used £20,000 allowance of our ISA.
yeah.
Then you put money in unit trust.
If you filled it up for the year, yeah. If you
Yeah.
filled up your bucket of money for ISAs, maybe maybe your spouse as well. So there's quite a range of money here. That's quite a
Yeah.
bit to save, but if you are in a sort of good position and you've filled those up, then you might think, okay, I need to do a unit trust instead. And we'd always kind of, I mean, you can do other things. There's premium bonds, for example. You can put premium bonds into a child's name if you wish.
Right.
That's what they used to do, didn't they? Back in the day, grandma would buy a premium bond for a baby at £1.
Mhm.
You have to spend
Mm.
£25 now, but they do that, and then everyone would forget about it, and the chances of winning is very small. But
Mm.
you never know. So there's always that. But I'd say an ISA is the place to start, really, in that way.
Right. Okay. And could you set up a trust as well? On
Yeah,
top of that.
yeah. So I think that if you don't have the money and you're saving, then you're thinking of ISAs. But then you kind of flip that around and you go, okay, what if we've got a lot of money here? We've got a pot of money already built up. What and we want to ensure that that is used for the benefit of the child. Then what do we
Mm.
do? And that's
Mm.
exactly when the trusts come into play. Quite often we see this, say a grandparent might leave, want to give money to a grandchild or grandchildren, so they want to
Mm.
set up a trust fund. Perhaps the parents are the trustees, but
Mhm.
the children are younger, so it's used for the benefit of them. That's when school fees perhaps come in. These trusts might come about after a will. So money is left in a will, and some of it is for the benefit of grandchildren. So you can set up a trust. Now, these are usually
Mm.
known as a discretionary trust. So you have the
Mm.
trustees, and then they use it at their discretion for the benefit of the beneficiaries listed. And the advantages there, well, if there's new grandchildren come along after the will, after that, then they can just be included in the trust. And the
Mm.
trustees have full control over that money. And that doesn't have what you can do is you can put in different ages. So a lot of people think age 18, that's a bit young to suddenly give someone a big wedge of money to use. So you can say,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to build in a different age. You don't have to build in an age at all. You can just keep it going. But you might build in an age 25, 28 or something and say, then the children have come of age and they can have the money.
Yeah.
Or you just keep the trust going and just use it at the discretion.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So I guess it's quite a lot to think about, how to plan in terms of what. I mean, these are my ideas, but people could have different ideas of what the kids would need and why you need to save for kids, um, or just leave it to the last minute. uh, but there's quite a bit of planning to be done.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
always the better.
the trusts can be a great thing. Of course, sort of added benefit of a trust. If when the child becomes an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and they might get, the trust fund is outside of inheritance tax for all parties, because it just
Yes.
sits outside. It's owned by the trust. It's not owned by any individual. And then,
Mm.
of course, if it's sort of we're thinking of scenarios here, if a child becomes an adult, gets married, and then gets divorced, well, the money still is in that trust. It's purely for the
Mm.
benefit of that person who's
That's
named
right.
in the trust, not for anyone else. No divorce proceedings, that sort of stuff. So it
Yeah.
can be a good way of making sure that money that has been built up perhaps by a grandparent or a parent is kept for the benefit of who they want it to benefit and no one else. So
Yeah.
there's some considerations around that, but it's it can be some good planning and can really help a family if there's been a, a sort of a surplus of money at some point. It can really help a
Yeah.
family because you can invest that money. It can continue to
Mm.
grow and provide an income for a very long time. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's quite a good advice in terms of getting a trust, and not just for, yeah, for it's for quite a long term for the kids to use, and it's the money protected against any other claims they might have in anything, right? Either it's divorce or it's business. You made a loss. You're personally liable for things and
yeah,
things like that. But the trust money is separate, right? So that is something you would always have, that the child would always have as a benefit to use, isn't it?
yeah. I think people sometimes sort of get a little bit put off by the thought of a trust. It sounds complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But in relative terms, it can be quite straightforward, really. Set up
Mm.
trustees, and they basically own that trust, and there are certain duties for a trustee. You can't be a trustee and then suddenly start using the money for your own benefit or whatever.
Yeah.
There are certain rules you must adhere to, and therefore, making sure that you've got some professionals around you might help in that way. But yeah, ultimately, it's a really nice way of controlling that money and making sure it doesn't get spent by the child, on a whim, or get taken away, like you say, on claims and things like that. So it
Yeah.
can be a really worthwhile
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. So it's good food for thought is, I guess, planning ahead and thinking about trusts,
Yeah,
setting up trust to for the benefit of kids. So I guess if anyone needs help, please do connect. Put a chat box. I'm happy to have a call and connect and help set up trusts, etc.
yeah.
Uh,
There's one last thing that I think that we should just throw in as an option,
yeah.
and this is kind of a one that you don't see very often, and it might sound a bit strange when we're talking about
Mhm.
saving for children, but
Mhm.
in true financial advisor style, usually whenever there's a question, the answer is a pension.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you might think, how can a pension be anything to do with a child? But
Hmm.
if you're in a situation where maybe you've saved that money in the ISAs, and you've filled up those sort of different buckets and allowances and things, you might start to think to yourself, okay, well, how about I set them up with a really good foundations for their future life? You might
Yeah.
find that maybe a grandparent hasn't had very good pension themselves, and they want to make sure that a grandchild is really well put in place. And right at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about saving early, and
Hmm.
this I've got a little example here, and this really sort of
Really,
accentuates how saving early really could potentially help someone. So with a
yeah.
pension, we all know about tax relief. Now, a child doesn't pay tax, but you still get tax relief up to a
Yeah.
certain point. So you can pay £3,600 into a pension for the benefit of a child.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
even though they don't work, so they don't have any UK earnings or whatever. So,
Okay.
but it doesn't cost you 3,600. It costs you £2,880. So
Mm.
£2,880 paid in with a bit of tax relief on the top of it means 3,600 goes in. So let's have a little bit of an example here, a play. If
Mm-hmm.
you started a pension for a newborn baby and you paid
Wow.
in for the first, I know, a bit weird, but you paid in for the first just
That's
10
really
years.
thinking ahead. Yeah.
If you pay in for the first 10 years, so you've paid in £28,800. So remember that figure, £28,800 for the first 10 years. That
Mm.
means 36,000 has gone in with the tax relief. Yeah. So let's
Right.
assume no growth in that first 10 years, but then at age 10, the money is left to grow and it grows well. Then
Mm.
we think about it's known as the rule of 72. If you want your money to double, you get
Mm.
the number 72 divided by how many years you want it to double by. So if you want it to double every 10 years, 72
Mm.
divided by 10, 7.2. So if your investment grows at 7.2% year on year on year, and it compounds up and it compounds up, then it will
Mm.
double every 10
Mm.
years. So
Yeah.
that 36,000 at
Mm.
age 10 for the child
Mm.
is going to be
Mm.
worth 72,000 when they're age 20, which is 144,000 when they're age 30. At age 40, it's 288,000.
Mm.
At age 50, it's 576,000. I think you see where I'm going here.
Yeah.
At age
Yeah.
60, it's 1,152,000.
Wow.
And
Wow.
what was the first figure we said? 28,800.
That's
So
all we put in.
that's all you've paid in.
Wow.
If I mean 7.2% growth is good growth, but if you look historically at, say, America, it's kind of done that. If you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
locked it away and forgot about it,
Yeah.
obviously £1 million in 60 years' time is not going to buy what £1 million buys now, but it'd be a
Yeah.
heck of a start for
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, anybody that was around in 60 years' time. That's compounding. That's in real action. It's
Wow. But can you set up child's pension? I've never like for
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Anybody
yeah,
can contribute to a pension. So, yeah, a grandparent or a parent. Yeah, a parent would have to do it physically, but
mm,
anyone can contribute. So a grandparent can contribute if they wish.
okay. So you just set
Um,
up a pension for your kids, and
yeah,
anyone wants to give gifts, put it in there.
and they will be sitting pretty by the time they retire.
Yeah,
With
amazing,
with
amazing.
with some good growth behind them. But so
Yeah,
I just thought, that's just worth really highlighting what compound interest can do,
to
because
do.
you
Yes.
see towards the end of that time, it just really starts ratcheting up.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Amazing. That's the penny. Every penny making an
Yeah, it's a,
time.
it's a bit like that question, isn't it? Would you prefer a penny that doubles every day for the next month, or £1 million now? And we all
Yeah,
heard that one now, haven't we? But so we know
yeah.
it's always a penny that doubles every. But it doesn't seem right, does it? But it's
It
it
is.
works.
It is. It works, right? Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Phil. Yeah, that I guess was very useful, and I'm sure our viewers would really enjoy and have a food for thought and thinking about future savings for not
Yeah,
just for yourself, not just for your future, but also kids' future as well.
yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.